In this video, we're going to be going through the subjunctive. In Latin, there are three moods: the indicative, imperative, and the subjunctive. And the subjunctive is perhaps the most common mood to appear in Latin. And it may sound complicated, but still treated like a verb, but one that conveys uncertainty. For example, he's not sure whether or not she read the letter, but he's certain that she received it. Now, there are many forms of the subjunctive in Latin, but for the GCSE, you only need to know two, which are the imperfect and the pluperfect. Let's start off with the imperfect subjunctive. Now, one good thing about the subjunctive is that it translates exactly the same as the indicative, meaning the imperfect subjunctive still translates to was or were verbing, but the form is slightly different. Now, the imperfect subjunctive takes the infinitive, not just the stem, but the whole infinitive, and add the MST, mustus, und endings. Now let's take a look at some examples. The amarum, I was loving, and moneris, you singular were warning. Now, like the indicative, the subjunctive also has a passive form. Now, in this case, it's still the infinitive as its quote-unquote stem, except you just change the endings into ristor, miniantor. You should all be very familiar with these endings. An example would be amarere, I was being loved, and monereris, you singular were being warned. Let's translate a couple of subjunctive verbs. If you want to practice, please pause the video. Orarent, they were praying. Essetor, he used to be. Now, essetor might look weird, and that's because the esse is the infinitive of sum esse fui, which is irregular. Highly recommend you remember all constructions of this esse because it is a highly irregular but high frequency verb. And lastly, we have conare. And you may have noticed, but what's strange about conare is that it translates as active, but it's actually passive. If you notice from the at the ending for aristor, miniantor. Now, that's because conare actually comes from conor, conari, conata sum, which is a deponent verb. And if you remember, deponent verbs are passive in form but active in meaning. So, like any other verbs, we take its infinitive and add its endings. But conari is a special case, as it loses its eyes and gets replaced with an E. Actually, the I in conari is always there, but it just blends into the endings. And this is the case for all deponent verbs. Now let's move on to the pluperfect subjunctive, which also translates like its indicative, which is had been verbed. Now its form seems a bit different because it has the perfect stem, not the whole of the perfect, but only the perfect stem this time, with an ise and the MST, mustus, und endings again. Now, when you're scanning a big passage of Latin, this is usually not as intimidating as it may seem because isse usually pops out at you pretty quickly. Now, let's look at some examples. Amaviesum, I had loved, and monuiesis, you singular had warned. Now, let's do a little bit of translation practice. If you want to try it out on your own, please pause and then check the answers later. Traxiestis, you plural hadract. Laudati essemus, we had been praised. Passus essem, I had suffered. Now, just take care that laudati ends with I when plural, and this is the case for all of them. Now, the subjunctives are mostly used in special clauses, and here are some that you should know for the GCSE. Just know that there are quite a few more than this. To recap, we have met two forms of the subjunctive today, the imperfect and the pluperfect. They translate exactly like their indicative counterparts, and they also have their passive forms. Now, for a more in-depth understanding of the subjunctive, make sure to check out the videos I linked in the description to fully understand its constructions. But for now, walete.